Welcome to the City Manager's Report. The City Manager's Report, a look at city updates and municipal news, and a preview of the next Oshkosh Common Council meeting agenda. Your hosts, Emily Springstroh of Oshkosh Media and City Manager Mark Roloff.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on your City Manager's Report right here on GovTV, your source for the most current and local things that are happening right here in our city of Oshkosh. I'm your host, Emily Springstroh, joined as always by our City Manager, Mark Roloff. So welcome, Mark, and thank you for joining us today.
Great to be here, Emily.
It's great to have you. We're going to go ahead and dive into the first half of our show with hot topics, and then we'll take a little break, and then we'll dive into the City Council meeting agenda for Tuesday, July 11th, 2017. So, Mark, first thing that we want to talk about here in our hot topics is the dark store bill. Now, we might have heard a little bit about this in the news and things kind of circulating. Give us a little bit of background, first of all, what the dark store bill item is all about. What is it?
This has to do with a lot of big box stores that are making the argument that their property should be valued as if it was collecting no rent, as if it was vacant in terms of being dark, no lights on. And they've been able to successfully make this case in other states. And we recently dealt with an issue with Walgreens where we were sued by Walgreens and actually lost because a Supreme Court ruling about 9 years ago resulted in the city having to refund, the city of Madison in this case, having to refund money because the court felt that they bought into that theory that these properties were overvalued. So the mayor and I went down to Madison to testify before the Ways and Means Committee, and we were joined by mayors, city managers, city assessors from throughout the state. A very bipartisan approach. There were folks on both sides of the aisle sponsoring this bill. Probably had the most number of sponsors of any bill in many a legislative session. And so we were very fortunate to have that bipartisan support. Didn't matter if the mayors were Republican or Democrat. They were there to make their case before the Ways and Means Committee.
Definitely. So we were able to find a clip. The mayor and Representative Hintz did speak. So let's go ahead, just take a look at the little clip that we have and see what the mayor had to say on the topic.
AB 387 seeks to reverse the Walgreens case, a decision that has already resulted in the city of Oshkosh refunding over $300,000 to Walgreens for only 2 stores in our city. This refund has been distributed to other Oshkosh taxpayers, particularly homeowners and small business owners, some of whom compete directly with Walgreens, but now at a very distinct disadvantage.
You know, the mayor went on to say a bunch of other things, and the real theme behind this was fairness, because when we have our assessors and we hire out assessors to do commercial properties, the thing we look for the most in those folks is their ability to be fair. And because what happens when we have the council approve the levy for property taxes, the assessment is merely the pie that slices everybody's share of taxes. And when a certain advantage is given to one group, that redistributes that tax bill to everybody else. And that's what the mayor was talking about. In some cases, some cities have done some really long projections. And we estimated with our projection that we could lose 5% of our value if this logic is followed. There are plenty of cases throughout the state where big box retailers are seeking to get their properties valued on the dark store concept, meaning it's closed, it's collecting no rent, it has no value. Meanwhile, they're selling these properties for millions of dollars. And that's the property, not the business itself. And we're very appreciative that we had over 50 sponsors of this legislation at the state level. Representative Hintz was one of them, so we certainly appreciate all his advocacy for this issue. And a lot of mayors, a lot of city managers were out there really making the case before everybody. So,
where do we go from here? What's the next steps? Now we've all kind of said our piece. What's going to happen next?
Well, I think you can expect to see some negative campaign. The funny thing is that some of this anti-lobbying that's going on for this bill is being led by big box stores, not small businesses, and they're making it sound like it's going to be a tax increase. Well, it's going to be anything but, because what they're doing is it's going to be less tax for me, but you're going to pay a lot more, and that part is not out there. So you're going to see some campaigns soon. Then eventually, I'm guessing that after the state adopts the budget, then they'll take up this bill. They're going through the public hearing process now, but I think you're going to see it probably get in late July or early August. This will come up, but stay tuned. You're going to see TV and radio ads that are going to be talking about this, and they're going to make it sound like it's a tax increase. And beware when somebody's warning about their tax increase and not yours. So that's certainly not the case here.
Okay. Well, Mark, thank you for the information on that, for clearing that up. And if you're interested in more details, you can look on the city website and also the Wisconsin Eye website, and they have the full video. You can hear all the comments from all the people throughout the state. So that's wonderful. Moving on in our hot topics, Mark, the next thing we want to mention here is that the bike lanes on West Haven Drive have been completed. We've been talking about the preparation for that, and they're installed. They're there. Yeah,
well, it's summertime, so the paint can dry when we put it out there. But it's on West Haven Drive from 9th Avenue all the way up to Patriot Lane, just before you get to near Festival Foods. And this is one of the major corridors that was identified in our bike and pedestrian plan for a bicycle throughway. And the idea is so that people can use the bike lanes for recreation or for shopping. And so this is what it looks like now. We used to have it, split right down the middle, but there are a lot of people who thought that West Haven was a 4-lane road, and it never was. Not a lot of people parked there, so it looked like it was 4 lanes, but now it clearly identifies it as 2 lanes, one lane each way, but it also has the bike lane now, and that's really going to be an improvement. There are some parking spaces that got taken out by the churches closer to West Haven. That's probably the one negative thing that we've probably heard, but I know it's going to take some folks getting used to, but it's always been 2 lanes, so don't be fooled by what it looked like it may have been. But this will make it safer for pedestrians and bicyclists to traverse this area of town. And I live in that neck of the woods, and I've seen a lot of people using the bike lanes already. So I think you don't realize it until you see it dedicated, and then folks come out.
Right. So motorists, be aware. Just be on the lookout for bike lanes. They are popping up a lot more in our city. So it's a great thing to see. It's positive, and just be aware next time you're in the West Haven area. So next item, also kind of dealing with some roads here, is a closure. Oshkosh Ave will be closing on Monday, July 10th from North Westfield Street to North Eagle Street. We kind of talked about this a couple episodes ago, but it'll be starting on Monday. So tell us a little bit about this closure, Mark.
We are doing some preparations for a new lift station, a sewer lift station over by Mary Jewell Park. And so we're doing some sewer upgrades in this area. So between Westfield and Eagle, we'll be digging it up to put some new sewer improvements in there so that once the lift station goes in, it'll be all ready to go and there won't be any more traffic disruptions. Obviously, Highway 21 Oshkosh Ave is a busy street and everything, so we want people to be aware of it. The signs are up, but if you're not driving it on a daily basis, you may not know about it. So we've got the signs up. Most people, we're really telling people to use Keller to get around there, and the detour signs will be set up, but most people know their way around town. If they're coming in, they'll know, okay, I got to go on to Keller. Don't go all the way to Westfield because the intersection at Westfield and 21 is closed, and we want to make sure people don't go that far because it's going to be very awkward to turn around there.
It'll get a little tricky if you're not expecting it. So just make sure that you're cautious when you're approaching the area. Anticipated to be closed for about 12 days. After that, it'll be 1-lane traffic both ways, and I think they were saying that it will be fully open to traffic by mid to end of August.
Yeah, that's right. And we want to make sure that we got a lot of this stuff done before EAA starts, so we got a lot of guests and visitors from out of town. So the road, we're planning to do it on July 10th, and 12 days is roughly 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more, but it should be okay. But if you have family members at Evergreen, You're going to have to go around to get there. You can't go off of Westfield. So those are the little things you got to be looking for. So just follow the signs and you'll be fine.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the update, Mark, on that. Another update we have to mention is an arena update. Tell us a little bit about where we're at right now, where the project is, and what the future looks like here.
Well, I'm getting information from the folks who are putting together the arena. A lot of people still think it's a city project and everything, but we've worked out that with the investor group, Fox Valley Basketball. It's being led by Greg Pierce at Windward Wealth Strategies. But here's the time lapse from dirt to framing. And if you haven't been on South Main Street, you're really going to be in for a surprise when you see this. There are people who haven't been there recently, but you can see through rain and even a little snow there a little bit. You can see that it's made quite a bit of progress, and the framing's up, and we're being told that it's ready to be opened in time for the first scheduled game, which is November 17th. So I'm told that they're on track to do that. So we're very excited about that. And of course, that's their part of it. Then we're also putting in public improvements. There was some concern about that, but we're really doing improvements there that are going to provide long-term benefits so that as this area develops, we're going to have some things in place already. And that was really the main reason that we were having some additional costs. I think it's money well spent down the road. That work will be beginning soon, and you'll hear and see more about that.
Some closures around that area too?
I think similar to Oshkosh Ave, there's very few streets in the city where we have to get formal council action to close it. And this happened to be two of them, Oshkosh Ave, which we just talked about, and South Main will also be closed at some point in the future. We're just now sitting down with the contractor to go over those details. So once we know that, pay attention to GovTV and you'll hear all that information about when things are going to be closed. It'll be a little inconvenience, but boy, when we're done with this, it's going to look so nice.
Yes.
Oh, it's well worth it.
Wonderful. Well, it's great to always get an update on the arena. And then one other thing that we wanted to mention on CMR today is the Oshkosh Corporation celebration coming up this next weekend for their 100th anniversary, and we've got a parade to look forward to. July
15th, Oshkosh Corp is going to be celebrating their 100th anniversary. They were founded in 1917. So this is a community open house. This is a parade. This is for the general public. It's not just for Oshkosh Corp employees or anything like that. The parade route's going to be on 20th, just east of Knapp, and then it'll go over to Oregon Street and go south down to Hughes, where the parade will end. So
it'll be really cool.
It'll be a lot of fun, and let's cross our fingers for great weather.
Yes.
They're going to have a lot of old vehicles in there. The mayor and I are going to be hopping on some of the vehicles to show off. I have no idea if they're going to throw me in the back of a garbage truck or one of the cool Army vehicles or anything like that. So we'll see what happens, but we're so very happy to be part of that celebration. They've been an iconic part of Oshkosh for 100 years now, and we're happy to have them here in town and happy to celebrate a great anniversary, a great employer for town, and look forward to being part of that celebration.
Definitely. Oshkosh Media will be covering the parade as well on July 15th, so make sure you just keep an eye on our website for replay times on Life TV, and you can watch the parade if you can't make it. So now it's that time of the show, Mark, where our viewers have the chance to ask our city manager anything about what is going on here in Oshkosh. So it's the question mark segment. Let's take a look at the question this week. All right, so Mark, the question is, why was Sawdust Days set up so differently this year?
Well, that was a very polite way to. We got a lot of comments about this on our Facebook page.
We did, yeah.
And so there was a little bit on both sides of the issue. Some people loved it, some people didn't love it. But a lot of it came back to concerns about security. Some of the aisles in the past were very tight, and they were intended to keep everything right on the concrete, but it just was too narrow for people, and it caused a lot of conflicts and whatnot. Plus, there were areas where drinking was occurring, and we felt it would be better in a secure area. So we shared those comments with the organizers and really pointed out some success that we had with the Rib Fest that was done last year. And so they set it up a little similar to that, but not completely. And they came back with a proposal that the city accepted. So I know there are some people that were complaining about it. quite honestly, I think some of it had to do with weather because we did have rain just before sawdust days and it got things a little yucky there. Well, that was going to happen regardless of what setup was there.
Right.
Certainly respect everybody's opinion, but it sounds like things went very well from an operational standpoint, minimal concerns expressed by the police. So we were pleased with the overall result, and I know it gets people a little worried, but change is one of those things that happens over time. So
our events are evolving a little bit, and people are kind of starting to rework their setups now.
Yeah, and I think it makes it for a safer event, and the families loved it. Maybe people have been going at night, maybe they didn't like it as much, but the families, we got a lot of positive comments that it is much more family friendly, and that's what it's always been advertised at, so perhaps we did the right thing by doing this.
Definitely. Well, great question. That one came from Facebook, and if you have a question for Mark and you'd like to ask, go ahead and send it to us on Twitter at City of Oshkosh. You can post it on our Facebook wall or message it to us on Oshkosh Media, or you can email us at questionmark@ci.oshkosh.wi.us, and he will answer it on the next episode of CMR. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll dive into the Common Council meeting agenda for Tuesday, July 11th, 2017. We'll be right back.
It is sad but true that for years, some people have been using storm drains to dispose of their wastes. Sanitary sewers take waste from bathrooms and kitchens and clean them up. But storm sewers do not treat or clean up anything passing through them. Everything that enters a storm drainage system is eventually discharged into a stream, river, lake, or bay in exactly the same form as it entered. One of the responsibilities of municipalities that operate storm sewer systems is to prevent what the EPA calls illicit discharges. Illicit discharges are any discharges of non-stormwater into or through the storm sewer. When illicit discharges enter surface waters, they can kill wildlife. They can suffocate plants and fish, destroy breeding and nesting areas. Never pour or dump anything down any storm drain.
Welcome back to City Manager's Report. Thanks again for joining us. We are here with City Manager Mark Roloff, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Oshkosh Common Council meeting agenda for Tuesday, July 11th, 2017. So, Mark, looking at some of the highlights that we want to cover, first thing, before the meeting, the Common Council will be meeting at 5 for a workshop on council chamber environment improvements. This will not be televised, but we'll give a little bit of an update after the fact. Tell us a little bit about what's going to be discussed at this meeting.
We're really looking at logistics within the council chambers, ways to improve the process for public to make some input. So this really started out as getting people to register to provide comment to the council, because a lot of folks are asked to give their name and address, and we can't necessarily decipher that. A lot of communities have you register where you put your name and address in there so we can call you up and you can speak right away. Mm-hmm. The idea behind that is just to make it more efficient. And one of the improvements that we're looking at is getting a little high tech on us, have a touchscreen right out in the lobby so people can enter their name right away. It'll go right to the clerk, so the clerk will have their name and, John Smith, Jane Doe, come on up. And we'll also develop a phone app for that as well. So we're going to show that to council. And that's one of the reasons that we can't really televise is because we're going to be running around out in the hallway, out in different parts of the room to really give council a flavor of this.
It would be a nice thing to have, too, to kind of avoid that awkwardness sometimes where someone gets up at the same time as someone else and everybody's trying to line up and that kind of thing. It'll just organize and streamline a little bit.
Yeah, people will be called up. And when there's only 2 or 3 people in the room, then they'll know they're next anyway.
Exactly.
The other one is provide a dedicated podium for the public so that they can come up there and they know where they can go and speak. and there'll be also a separate dedicated podium for staff. That staff will be able to come up because a lot of times the staff's in the back. We're going to have the staff that are speaking to issues more up front so that they can more quickly get up there and answer questions from the council. And even if it's during a public comment part, that the public is there and they can hear the answer. I've seen that work in other communities and it works very well.
Okay.
And all this is about keeping the flow of the meeting going. And it's not so much to shorten the meetings as much as it is about when we get to issues that need a good amount of discussion, you have more time for that discussion. And then lastly is security. Chief Smith has written the council memo on some things they may want to be able to do, and they'll take a look at some security issues. I don't know which ones they're going to accept or not accept, but it's going to be a good discussion.
Excellent. So we look forward to hearing a recap of everything that's talked about at this meeting and some future changes to how meetings might be going in the future. So under consent agenda, we want to talk about awarding the bid to Capel Brothers and Diedrich Inc. for Tech Miller Park restrooms update, and that's for the Parks Department, about $98,000, a little more than that. So tell us exactly what this is relating to. It's kind of part of a greater plan.
Well, Tech Miller Park is one of the parks on the north side of town. It's just west of Oshkosh North High School, and we are going through updating the restrooms in our parks because they're pretty old, and this is part of what's called our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. So Tech Miller Park is the next one in line, and really it's based on the condition of the park, and this one's in some pretty rough shape, and we had a $120,000 budget for it. The bids came in at 98 plus some other things. We're going to be about $10,000 under budget, and we're going to get a great improvement for a great neighborhood.
Excellent. We love to see the improvements taking place out at our parks in Oshkosh. Next couple of items, two items relating to each other, amending the 2017 CIP for Riverside Cemetery Chapel repairs, and then also accepting the donation for that from the John E. Kinzel Foundation. Tell us what about that is.
The Kinzel Foundation was made aware that our chapel had was in need of some improvements, and there's a donor through the Kinzel Foundation that is willing to donate the entire cost of these improvements. And so we're really excited that they're willing to donate those. And Labe Restoration's been hired by the Kinzel Foundation to do that. So chapel repairs will be, if you go over there and you're using the cemetery for a funeral or something, the chapel provides a very nice venue. And this will improve it so that generations can continue to enjoy it.
That's wonderful. It's so beautiful out there too. So if you haven't checked it out, I would highly encourage to take a walk down there. Under new resolutions, Mark, number 18, approve the tax increment district number 33 project plan. This is relating to the Lamico redevelopment. That might sound familiar to some of our viewers. Maybe give us a little background on what that is.
Well, Lamico is the last area in the Marion Road district, redevelopment district, that is still standing from some of the old industrial days. It was the last remaining wooden crutch factory in the world, and it was not included for whatever reason over the years. And so now we've got a developer that is interested in putting in what's called the annex, which is a student-type housing that's apartment living, but you rent by the bedroom, and they've used this model in other college communities, and it's gone over very well. There's a lot of environmental remediation that goes into this because the factory did have a lot of things in the ground that need to get cleaned up, as well as the condition of the soils. Again, a lot of sawdust and things like that. So this will be cleaning it up so that they can get it into buildable form. And so they're seeking some assistance on tax increment financing. Fortunately, it looks like they'll be able to get all that work done within and pay it back within a 13-year period. And it'll also include some improvements to Dawes and Riverway, which are just backing up to that site. So some good improvements, and it'll be a welcome addition to the Marion Road area.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that, Mark. Continuing on under new resolutions is number 19, approving the 2017 Great Neighborhoods Capital Improvement Program funding in the amount of $97,470. Give us a little bit of information about what the Great Neighborhoods CIP is.
This is part of our neighborhood improvement program where we get input from the residents in the neighborhoods themselves to tell us what improvements they would like to see, physical improvements that will improve their neighborhoods. And some of the examples that are in there is we're preparing a master plan for Roosh Park to see what improvements over the years we want to include in there, and that'll probably come back for some subsequent funding. Some improvements at Stevens Park. We've already done some things there. Now the neighbors want to tweak it a little bit, a couple $1,000s for some neighborhood improvements there. There's also some terrace trees being proposed to be planted. There's a huge connection between terrace trees and just how the neighborhood evolves and how it looks and values as well. And I've seen that over the years. So these are a lot of great improvements that the neighborhoods have proposed, and there's a lot more, but those are just a few examples of what we're doing. But the neighbors provide the input, and most of them have been going into parks, but there's other things like the terrace trees that people really like. So we're excited that we get the neighborhood input, and it helps elevate the look of the neighborhood, and then other neighbors decide that they'll invest in their own homes as a result of seeing the city investment.
It's a little bit of a domino effect, there's a lot more community pride. The Great Neighborhoods program is such an awesome program. So if you want more information, there's a lot more on the city website under the Community Development Department's page. A lot of really good stuff. We just really briefly want to mention the July 26th budget workshop, number 1 at 5 p.m. Any preview for that, Mark?
Well, no preview just yet, but this is the first of what will be 6 budget workshops, 3 before the budget's presented, so it's background. A lot of background, where we're looking ahead, doing some projections on costs and health insurance and things like that, because those are huge cost components to our budget. So we'll give the council a little update on that. And then in subsequent workshops, we'll talk about capital improvements, state aid, things like that.
Okay, typical first meeting, kind of an overview of what's to come and kind of getting started.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Under City Manager announcements and statements, our last item we want to talk about is demolition and remediation charges for the Buckstaff property for arena development. Kind of talk us through the numbers here and what exactly this all means.
Well, you may recall, there was some misreporting in the media that we had some cost overruns on demolishing the site, and actually we got some bad bids, and because we had put a very tight time frame on it, and the bids were too high. In fact, we only received 1 bid, and we didn't think that was a responsible enough bid. So the council rejected that bid, and we suggested that perhaps Public Works could, we'd take the risk of Public Works doing the demolition of the pad. And the council agreed to that. We had a good winter, which really helped because it's a lot of our Public Works crews, and while the snow wasn't falling, they were over there knocking this stuff out. And we actually, when all is said and done, we're approving some, or notifying council these expenditures came into play. But there were some demolition costs, as well as the biggest expense we had was getting the foundation crushed up, and now we have some extra gravel for future street projects. But we're $50,000 under budget on that one. Mm-hmm. That made it sound like it was several $100,000 over.
Right.
Not the case. And we also have some extra gravel kicking around for future projects. So it was a risk that we took, and the gamble paid off for us, and we're very pleased about that. And even the folks with the arena were amazed at how quickly we got the site ready for them to break ground, because they broke ground according to the time schedule that they had put together.
Excellent. Well, thank you for clearing that up for us, Mark, and that misinformation that was kind of floating around. It's good to end on a high note with the arena and Buckstaff and everything like that. So it looks like that's gonna do it for this episode of City Manager's Report. So Mark, as always, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today.
Always a pleasure.
So again, the Common Council meeting is this Tuesday, July 11th at 6 p.m. You can watch it live on GovTV and on our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Or you can listen to it on the radio at 101.9 Oshkosh FM, which is also online and on the TuneIn Radio app for mobile devices. Make sure to like Oshkosh Media on Facebook or follow us on Twitter for all of your community and government programming and updates. Or go ahead and check out our YouTube channel for government meeting replays and past episodes of your favorite programs. And as always, don't forget, if you have a question for City Manager Mark Roloff, you can send it to us on Twitter at City of Oshkosh, post it to our Facebook page at Oshkosh Media, or email us, and he'll answer it on the next episode of CMR. So as always, thank you so much for joining us on your City Manager's Report, and we'll see you next time.